Hello, this is Katerina. You're listening to Accents, a radio show for literature, art, and culture. I'm your host, Katerina Stoykova, and my guest is poet Sue Churchill. Hi, Sue, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today.
I'm excited.
A few biographical notes about our friend Sue. After teaching English for many years, Sue Churchill writes poetry and manages Thistle and Farm in Woodford County, where she raises sheep and chickens. Many of Sue's recent poems have grown out of her work in farming and its revelations of the human place in the vast, complex, and often heartbreaking natural world. Her chapbook, Above the River, to be published by Workhorse Writers in the fall of 2020, reflects this focus. And maybe we can start with you telling us a few words about that chapbook.
Well, I returned to the farm in Kentucky in 1999, but I was teaching, and I, for 20 years, was not in much contact at all with nature. So that when I retired from teaching and started working seriously on poetry, I was also farming for the first time. And farming places you in direct contact with nature in a really intimate way, with animals, with plants, and with the surrounding nature. And it was fascinating to me and disturbing, as some of the poems I'll read today reflect. But I just wrote poems about that experience, and they clustered into that book, Above the River. Our farm is above the Kentucky River. And so the poems came together, and they're about this place and about the natural world and our relation to it. So that's the focus of that book and of many of my poems.
And what are you writing these days?
Well, the poems I'm going to read today, I'm writing more about people these days, as it turns out. I guess I kind of finished up my intense farm poems, my sheep poems. There were lots of sheep poems. And I'm writing more about, well, I've written a few poems kind of directly look at what we're going through right now with the pandemic, and other poems that I've got a group of poems that respond to the poems of famous writers, and that was kind of an accident. I didn't intend that, and I just noticed I kept writing them, and so I plan to read one of those today as well. And I'm working on another collection. I'm not sure of the title of it yet, but it has to do with the fact that although I'm a very obedient and usually nice person, apparently I'm also a rebel. And so the working title is Not, Not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing a few of your poems, Sue.
Well, Mother's Day is tomorrow, and I wanted to read one poem in honor of Mother's Day. It's the oldest poem that I'll read. But it is a poem in response to a famous poet, in response to Dylan Thomas's famous villanelle to his dying father. I wrote a poem to and for my mother, who is 91. Her 91st birthday was the day they closed the nursing homes for the quarantine, and we couldn't celebrate with her. She is in a nursing home in Versailles in Taylor Manor. And I wrote this poem to her before this, but still seems appropriate today. A response to Dylan Thomas. Mother, go gently as you may. Don't curse the coming of the dark. Never mind what poets say. Don't rage, don't fight. Go like a falling star. Don't curse the coming of the dark. Although we'll miss your certain shine. Don't rage, don't fight. Go like a falling star, glory drawn to a fine line. Although we'll miss your certain shine, Let brightest eyes dim like a lost thought, all glory drawn to a fine line. Not all descent must be hard fought. Let bright eyes dim like a lost thought. Never mind what poets say. Not all descent must be hard fought. Mother, go gently as you may. For a woman who's very bright, has a better memory than I do. So the second poem I thought I'd read is actually about nature and more like many of my other poems. The first poem was actually a prayer for my mother that she might go gently when she goes. And the second one is also a prayer. When I came back to the farm and I began to notice that the woods were not the way they were when I was a child. And I became aware of invasive species and invasive plants and animals and the general degradation of nature, the detrimental effects that we are all having on it, we humans. And we seem to be the enemy of most other creatures, as it turns out. So this is a poem that is a prayer for the earth. It's a long poem in 6 parts. And it tries to come to terms with what the world might be without us. It's called World Without End. 1. Peace to the beetles of spring, returned to our guest room. Hercules beetles big as a mouse, polka dot clumps that hoist the blimps of their bodies on waspish legs, serrated against my palm when I find them toppled and set them right. May they find the way back through the cracked foundation, navigate our insulation, hold out on their plodding pilgrimage. May no guest's shriek disrupt their ritual. May they reach the plush fulfillment of the oriental carpet, and when they can no more, may they lie in state on its velvet couch. 2. Peace to the bats that preen and flex, that unroll bumpy wheels on the edges of freeway skies and around stadium lights, that chatter and click in the June chimneys. May they rub no white noses. May our voices echo them down to deeper zones for roosting. May they find themselves without us. May they last. 3. White flags on high to the invaders, termites, borers, plants of the ilk, honeysuckle, garlic, mustard, and winter creeper. When they've finished off the trees, snuffed out the balsam root, the bleeding hearts, and the spring beauties, they will be the green that remains, the life left. 4. Peace be to the extinguished, the rendered, not just the big cats, the rhinos, but the unarmed, the passenger pigeons, pearly mussels, golden toads, and the host of amphibians. The Caribbean monk seals, discovered, cataloged, and all slaughtered in the snip of 30 years. While we have tongues to speak, while they remain in name, may they remain in name. While we live to sleep, may they reappear in our dreams, as it was and never shall be. 5. Peace to the listeners who slink away under rocks, ease off of river snags at our noisome approach, who elude with camouflage of silence, and who, when we have gone, will rejoice without words. 6. In time's loop, our curse of plastic dispersed into its elements, may the unseen river stream on over ridges, under sunsets, and under clouds endless passing. As it was in the beginning, the world's music will remain. The waters will wash and gurgle around the rock, the wind rush and roar. So be it. So be it. So be it. And I think it turns out we are also our own worst enemies, not just nature's. So the next poem is about the pandemic, the quarantines, the social distancing, the generalized anxiety, and what we're facing. And it's a poem that reflects a flight that I had to take, an air flight on a plane during the pandemic. It's called Pre-Dawn Flight During the Epidemic. Light behind us, darkness ahead. We shuttle along a coded path from 17R35-1Z to C17R35Y. Weedless and tight, perfect and perpendicular. At the wheel, no maverick, no daredevil. The machines monitor, following a script under digital control. We stay within white, flashing lines, regulations and directives, floating like clouds of good intent. As we rise, even the waters below are edged, constructed. We look down at the possible ground, out into the opening sky. We cross over the huddled blocks of the financial district, a Legoland. Our breath is hot underneath our masks, and our hands damp in plastic gloves. We know we are entering the fog of the future with only the map of what used to be. Across the social distance, we look for each other, all eyes, only eyes, soft or hard, focused or relaxed. We blink on and off and on, a dumb show, a toggle. The stranger nearest me flaps in white plastic, a disposable jumpsuit like a body bag. Under it all, we go hot and cold. Under it all, we are streaked and blemished, and we can see the nothing between us. As we move into the light, it comes clear that there's no grid, no level field, no objective corner, only the ever relative I. We are all where we shouldn't be, going somewhere maybe, or going nowhere, up in the air, into the silence. All we know now, the only surety, we will all arrive at the inevitable ground, the closing sky. We are being carried beyond ourselves. And then one final poem that I hope carries a little more hope than that one. This one's actually another response to a famous poet. This one is has reflection on karma and the way what goes around comes around, and how we can head out into the future where we've laid down so much bad karma. But it responds to Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And the title comes from that work. The title is, And I Am Next of Kin. Gotta be bad karma, them on the job, the road without shoulders, them straddling the entrails, setting to. Not so bad maybe if I'd done it on purpose, but I veered, went wide. The bird did too. A big black vulture had shown up in my poem that very morning. What was the message I was receiving as the bird popped off my right front headlight, flopped into the ditch? Some albatross for my neck, some new albatross, some noose waiting. What had I done pulling these birds, a something in the sky, into my poem path? Same stretch of road, another weary day, my weary, wary eye. I topped the ridge at 50. On my left, a house. On my right, 2 kids. At the mailbox, sister, little brother. They watch. They know. They wait. Her hand, a caution at his chest. His arms clasped round a package, backpack, a heavy bulge. To get past, I accelerate, but as I pull even, it tears loose, flings itself. A cat! I brake, I swerve, my eyes shut with dread. But I see the boy's eyes, seeing the boy, the boy. The boy does not bolt. The car shudders forward. The cat, big shoulders, as if winged, bounds beyond, and it is on the other side, and I am on the other side. We are all on the other side of the thing that did not happen. So those are my poems for today, hoping we'll all get to the other side of the thing that did not happen.
Thank you, Sue. These are all deeply moving, beautiful poems. I am so excited for your chapbook when it comes out. I would love for you to come back on Accents, and we'll just have a lot of questions that I want to probe into the writing, into the publishing, into the joy of having a new book. It's going to be your first, right?
Yes, it is. I'm very excited about it. Very pleased. It's wonderful for me to have that.
Yeah. Well, here is the question from me. You worked as a teacher for quite a few years, right?
Yes, 15 years.
Okay. So what is the most important thing you taught your students? If there is one thing you want them to remember from you and your classes?
The power of writing. I taught writing. Actually, before I was a teacher, I didn't have the courage to write. But because I taught writing, I learned its importance because I saw its importance to my students. And everybody has something to say, something important to say. And we have to have the courage to say that. And the honesty is what matters. That's what I would want my students to have remembered. And that's what I learned from them, actually, more than they learned it from me, because they were wonderful. I hated to leave teaching when I did, but the time was right for a number of reasons, and I did. I needed to take over the farm, but I had learned from my students' writing, the value of writing, and it goes with us. It carries us on. So.
And one last question, Sue. Who do you get along with better, the sheep or the chickens?
Oh, By far the sheep. Chickens are cruel, cruel beasts.
Really?
Oh, Lord. Oh, they're awful. Yes, they're so cruel to each other. They're vicious. And the sheep are far more fascinating to me. But I will say, animals in general have so many abilities that we don't have. And there's an education every day from the animals. They teach me so much, and we have not nearly enough respect for any animals. They have incredible capacities and they're smart. We just don't know. So I prefer the sheep by far. They're almost friends. When I'm in a bad mood, when things go wrong, I go out to the sheep. I have another poem called "She Went to the Sheep," and it's about that. I find the sheep very comforting.
She went to the sheep. That sounds great too. That's a great book title, I would say.
Well, it's one of my own favorite poems. I almost read it on here today, but then I culled it. I thought, no, that one's got to go. It didn't quite like the others, but
next time. Well, I think that you chose wonderful poems to share with our listeners. Thank you very much, Sue. And
thank you.
Have wonderful rest of the week, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.